Today we're going to cover data migration testing, best practices, what to think, how to approach. And if you are in actually the QA environment, a lot of companies are migrating to the cloud, let's say Snowflake, Databricks, or some other environment. Even if you're migrating systems, there will be a lot of takeaway points for you to take from this conversation. And of course, the presentation will be available offline, and then if anything else is needed, we can help you with that. With that, let's start with the presentation. So this is the second, and then we will have the third one later on. We already covered ETL and data warehouse testing in the previous one. Let's start with a case study, and this is about the TSB Bank. So sometime 2 years back, the TSB Bank project, there was a data migration project, it failed. And the reason it failed, we're going to analyze that. But basically what happened is 1,300 customers lost their money from their accounts. There were a lot of fines they had to pay. It was published in Facebook. They were fined by the compliance and regulatory agency like Bank of England. They were fined. A lot of things happened. And it costed like 330 million pounds to them, or maybe the total expense lost money is about $1 billion. And this slide is important to understand that what you are doing in data migration, or if you don't handle it correctly, there is a huge fall off in terms of money and in terms of your reputation as well. So with that, let's understand what was the data migration project. So they had a Lloyds Bank platform, and they had to migrate it to a new platform. It's called a Proteo for UK, and it was only migration of 5.2 million customers. And even that one failed, and as I shown in the earlier slide, they paid like $1 billion losses because of this migration failure. So why it failed? Let's look into it so we can learn from it. See, one of the things they did is they did a very small cutovers migration, and then suddenly they decided to migrate millions of customers in one day. So you should never do that. Ideally, what you want is you want to de-risk the migration by doing bigger and bigger and bigger, coming to the final big migration. But they didn't follow it, and then there was an issue. The second mistake they were doing is while they were doing the data migration, they were also updating the target system. You should never do that. Ideally, what should happen, you should upgrade your software, test your software, then do the data migration, and then do the data migration testing. So it's a sequential process. You cannot do it you cannot migrate the software and test the migration as well at the same time. The another aspect of migration is, since a lot of people over here in this meeting are from QA, one of the things that they didn't do is they didn't define who is going to do the data migration testing. There is some charts over here. It was distributed across different departments and divisions and teams, and joint responsibility is nobody's responsibility. That's one of the reasons for their failure. The another problem was so when you migrate from source to a new system, a legacy system to a new system, you need to compare the source and the target. You need to look at the source data and the target data. You need to create this mapping document, table mapping, column mapping, reference data mapping, data transformation mapping. Since they didn't have access to the source platform, these mappings were not good enough, right? They were not accurate, and that's another reason why the migration failed. There's another reason, one more reason is when you replicate, when you're doing the migration, you have to do not a small chunk of data, but you have to use complete data set. You cannot just say, oh, I did some trial runs with like 100 records or a few thousand records, and then the rest of the million records will automatically work out. You need to try migrating everything in different trials and many runs, and make sure that you have tried and tested all the migration. So they did a very small migration, and then hope that whatever small chunk I did, it will work for the bigger migration. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. Another issue was they did this migration, but they didn't. So there was system migration and there's data migration testing, right? So they didn't allocate enough time for data migration testing. And so what happens when the main migration event happened, there were millions of customers, they pushed everything in one shot. And of course, key tests were not complete, and then the migration failed. So coming back, so these are all the problems. So what should we do when we are doing a data migration? So here's the key point. The key point here is in a data migration and a data migration testing, the key point here is data reconciliation. And what basically we mean is by data reconciliation is whatever the system is on the left hand side has to be reconciled completely to the system that is on the right hand side. So let's say you're taking data from a Oracle database and then you move it to the target database. How do you know that whatever I have is exactly on the other side? It's a schema, data types, tables, column. There are a lot of things involved in that. So the key capability you need to develop and understand is data reconciliation, and and then we'll talk about in next few slides how to do it and how to think about it. But again, I'm repeating the key takeaway, the key action for QA teams and data migration team and data testing team is to implement data migration testing, or for that you need data reconciliation. Now let's see, the data migration testing involves two steps, right? There are multiple steps, but at the high level there are two steps. The first step is the schema data type reconciliation. So basically what we are doing, we are taking the database and of course we'll come up with examples and all that in a few minutes. But basically you take the schema from the legacy system and you migrate the schema to the new system. So now there are two possibilities. You have the exact schema or you have similar schema. So the point here is when you are migrating the system, your business rules have not changed. A customer is still a customer, an employee is still an employee, a sale is a sale, a transaction is a transaction, a shipment is a shipment. So the business model has not changed. It is possible that the data model is same or the data model is slightly different, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure that whatever system, the schemas, the data model is similar to what is in the source system versus in the target system. And then there is a second part to it is you need to ensure that the data types, because let's say you go to Oracle database and you go to Snowflake database, the data types are slightly different. Here is varchar 2, there might be string over there. So you need to make sure that they are equivalent, if not same. So that's what I mean by similar. So then step number one is the schema reconciliation, and I'll show you how we do it in the product. The next step that you will do, if you look here, so once the schema is migrated, you do the schema migration. Then what you do is you do the initial load of the data from legacy system to the new system. Okay, and when we are doing this migration, the next thing we need to do is reconcile the initial load. So for example, if you had billions of records or millions of records in the legacy system, in the old system, you need to take the data and bring the new system at the same level. In the system B, it has to come at the same level initially. And how do you know that? You need to reconcile the initial load. And again, we'll take an example and show you how to do that. Then once the system are consistent, so I have million records here, I have million records here, I have $1 million transactions there, I have $1 million transactions there. Then what you do in the legacy system, you do let's say a $4 transaction, and you also do a $4 transaction in the new system. There's a mistake, legacy, but it's actually system, new system. Then if my balance was $1,000 in the legacy system, and since I did a $4 transaction, the new balance will be $1,400. Same thing should happen in the B system. And that's what we have to do is every time you do transaction in the old system and the new system, you need to make sure that this continuous delta reconciliation is happening. And that's one of the things we do in the iceDQ platform. And then finally, once the system is live, you can obviously do a continuous monitoring, keep on doing the monitoring as an ongoing basis. So think about this. You migrate the schema, you have to reconcile the schema, you migrate the initial load, initial data, then you do the initial data reconciliation, and then you do incremental parallel transactions, and then you do the incremental reconciliation of the data. And then the fourth step is, of course, ongoing monitoring. We can ignore that for now. So basically what we are talking about is there are a series of steps that we need to do. For every step, like the schema and the data and the incremental load, you need to do the reconciliation. Remember what I said, the key point in data migration testing is reconciliation, right? And there are a lot of mistakes that you can do, but this is like the 90% of the mistake. Not having a system to do proper data reconciliation, schema reconciliation is going to kill the project. Let's take one example. If you look here, what we are saying, right? Because when many times when you migrate from one database to another database or one system from another system, the database changes. And if the database changes, the problem here is the data type changes, there are structure changes, there are a lot of things that will change. And here is an example between DB2 and Snowflake, right? So see, if you look at the object type here, temporary tables supported by DB2 but not supported by Snowflake, identity columns supported by DB2 but not supported by this, and money data type, this is supported by DB2, but in Snowflake you have to use a numeric or a decimal, right? Date time data type, it is supported, yes, but there are different variations of timestamps, right? Then there is a timestamp data type, yes, and then there is equivalent, there is SS no, but there are some equivalent or something different you have to use. Then there is a unicare data type, it is there in DB2 but not supported in Snowflake. Depending on the source database and the target database, these rules change. And then you have to create rules to ensure that the data types between the source and the data type between the targets are different. If they are different, they are reconciled and you have rules to match them so that you have the equivalent data types and objects in the system. So how can we help over there? So in this example, if you see, what we have done is there is a source data set and the target data set on the left side, and then there is a join that we are doing. And if you look here, we are comparing the table names. So for example, if you are doing a simple lift and shift, the table names will be same or almost similar. The column names will be exactly same and maybe similar. And then of course there are data types and all that. So you want, when you do the migration, let's say you're doing Snowflake to Snowflake migration or development to QA migration, right? So you need to make sure that the data types are matching. And how do we make sure the data type is matching? We take this schema reconciliation option and then we compare these two. And then if you look at this report over here, all right, here what we have seen here is the data type, there is a mismatch. There is a number here. So the varchar2 is equivalent is varchar. So this is good. Varchar number is not, float is not an equivalent of number. So it is showing in red and so forth, right? And then if you look at nullable, in the source, some things are nullable and some somewhere they are not. So it's not nullable and here it is yes. So there are, things that you can capture by doing data schema reconciliation. So step number one is to make sure that the schema between these the legacy system and the new system is same or similar, and the similarity is dependent on the rules that you have. Then we, as I talked about, right, the next step is you need to do data reconciliation of initial load, right? And initial load means what? Like I have, like as I talked earlier, if I have billions of records, each table has million, let's say there is customer table, there is transaction table, or there is employee table, there is a reference data table, all this data, I'm going to migrate it into the cloud, and then I'm going to use a platform like iceDQ to reconcile and make sure that the initial load matches. And I will show an example on how it is done. But before that, let's go another example. Then the incremental, the one I said, right? See what happens is sometimes both the systems are not live yet, and the source system is getting populated with data, even though the target system Snowflake in this case is not completely populated, it's not active yet. So what you need to do after initial migration of the data, you need to migrate the initial incremental load. So if there are people still doing transaction in the source system because they have not stopped doing transaction. You need to migrate every night or every end of the day when there is a break. You take the data, whatever is changed, and you migrate into the target system. Then this is the parallel run. Now what happens is when both the systems are in sync, they start doing operations in parallel. Now, if the system is operating in parallel, the example that I gave earlier, if I do a $4 transaction, I need to make sure that the same $4 transaction is not creating a new dollar amount on the right hand side. And how do you do that? Every time there are transactions, you go and do a reconciliation between between the old system and the new system, and you compare the data values. So with this, you are now guaranteed that the systems are behaving very similar. Why do I need to do this? Because remember, I have migrated the systems, your technology is changed, your database is changed, but your business rules have not changed, right? If I had a balance of $1,000 and I gave you $4, it will be $1,400 in the source system. The same thing has to happen in the target system. It cannot be $1,008 or 1,000 something else, right? Because the systems have changed, business has not changed. And if the business has changed, then you need to make sure that the rules are changed appropriately to see that difference as well. But 99.99%, only the system changes, not the business rules. And how do you test this thing? So for example, if you look here, what is happening, I have in the source system, I have the members data here. All the systems are here. The table is here. On the right hand side, there is a new database that I have. And I am saying, hey, take the data from here and compare all the data that is on the right hand side. And if you look at this, while migrating, here if you see date of birth, so it basically has compared everything: first name, last name, sex, email, address, city, zip code, everything. And we have shown here a sample where the sample is saying in the source system the date of birth is showing this, I think it's a replacement for null, and the target system is showing something else. I see there is a question. Okay, when we say reconciliation is about row counts. First example is row count. Let's say I have 100 records, 100 customers on the left side. Do I have 100 customers on the right hand side? Right? It has to be the same. But just because I have 100 customers doesn't mean that I can take the same. If there are 100 customers on left hand side, I can take one customer from the left hand side and populate that customer 100, populate the same customer 100 times, and the count will match, right? So just doing a checksum, the row count reconciliation won't work. Then the second question is, you can go second level where you say, hey, I have 100 customers on the left hand side and 100 customers on the right hand side, but are they the same customer ID? So customer ID 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? So you have to match those. Then the third step is, even though the customers are the same, their data might not be might not be same. So here in this case, for the same customer, their date of birth and emails are not matching. So if you look at this, what is happening is not only we are comparing the row counts and sum of dollar amounts, but you have to also go and compare the primary keys and the values in the database. I will take the questions. I'll just have one more slide and then I'll take the questions. So, but fundamentally what you need to do, you need to match the row count, you need to match, reconcile the sums, you need to match the IDs, you need to match or reconcile the data values itself. Now there is a possibility that in the old system it was first name separate and last name separate, right? And the new system you have concatenated the first name and last name together, or the other way around. So there are rules you can create to check that. Now I'm going to come to the questions after this slide. The question that comes into picture is, why do this? What is the advantage of bringing doing data reconciliation and automating it? If you look there are many parameters that come into picture. So one is automation, right? If you look at the left hand side in the middle, everybody knows if you automate, you get efficiencies. The test coverage, because now remember, when you're doing data migration, you can do a lot more complex use cases that you are not possible to do manually. You can compare, let's say, a file with a database, or you can compare on-premise database with a Snowflake database, right? So you get better test coverage with automation. Investigation, right? So now, as you saw in the previous, not only I get like, hey, there is a problem in the data, I get to know exactly which table, record, column level I have a problem, right? Then there is of course recording of defects, that you can record all the defects. You can automate, because a product like iceDQ, if you tell this is the old system, this is the new system, it can actually automatically create the rules to test your system. You can also look at it helps in data analysis, data quality, resource. The number of resources of course has to reduce with automation. Release cycle, right? So for example, if many times the developers develop, but then they are saying, oh, we cannot release it because the QA team or UAT team or has not certified it. So with automation, because you create rules once and keep them, and just whenever you need, you run it. Whatever time it takes to run, that's it. So that reduces your release cycle, and gives you a tremendous velocity in terms of project timelines. The duration, of course, the duration is reduced because the release cycle is reduced, the testing cycle is reduced, the effort is reduced, and then the key point here, especially if you're migrating, you don't just have the source and the target. You sometimes have intermediate stages in the system. Now, how do you test the intermediate stage? How do you compare the intermediate stage? All those things becomes faster with automation. The last point is reusability. Hey, once the rules are created, you can just create, because unless the system are not changed while you are doing the migration, you don't have to worry about changing the rules or anything else, because all you are doing is reapplying the rules again and again, and that gives you a lot of reusability. So Anna, let me let me take the questions.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So there is a question from Rama. Rama, how does the data is migrated from legacy to target systems? So scripts or copy paste we are seeing the screen. Okay, thank you. There are in a migration project there are two different tasks, right? One is actually migrating the system, and the second part is actually testing the system, right? The way migration is done is very specific. You take the source system, you either write ETL processes or you write extracts that actually directly dump the data into the target system, or you put in intermediate stages like in a data lake or a file server, and then from the file you migrate the system. So it depends on company to company. But the key point here is, if you are doing incremental update, you need the ability to find the data that is changed between yesterday's or today. Otherwise, you will just keep on doing the complete refresh of the system. So, but it depends. So normally there is an initial load, and then there is incremental load that is done. Then does reconciliation means validating if the number of the rows are same? I think I answered this question. It is not just about number of records. It is number of records. It's the total sum, the aggregate sums. It is about primary keys, and it's actually individual data value. Sale to sale has to match. For example, if I have a customer who has $1 million in his account, when I migrate, he cannot have $2 million or $0 million. So not only you have to reconcile the records, but also reconcile the values. This is very similar to the approach I use in data load measure for United Health Group. Correct. I agree with this. I am not sure if you use any product to compare, but the problem is when you are doing a big migration, once you decide that I want to do data reconciliation, the second question that comes in is how are you going to do millions and billions of records of data reconciliation. So there are basically fundamentally two ways, right? One is you can do it manually, bring the Excel or do some comparison or write some scripts, or you can use a platform like iceDQ to reconcile it. The second, the biggest problem with the reconciliation testing is when you migrate to the cloud, the system is in the cloud and you are in on-premise, so you need a way. Your software needs the ability to compare the one side on the cloud and one side on the premise, and then compare the same. Is there a way easy way to test 200 plus table schema? Yes, there is a very easy way. We have pre-built rules in iceDQ because you can go to the system. It goes to the system tables, and in one rule it compares all the tables and columns, because basically what you do is table schema dot table dot column and dot data type. If you bring it side by side, you can reconcile them, and in 1 minute you can have the reconciliation of the tables. I think I answered that question. Does the tool check every row of data for reconciliation? It has three abilities: compare at aggregate level, compare at row level, and compare at each attribute level. So not only you can compare at the row level, but also you can. I can show an example. I have one example here. So if you see an example, it's not only comparing at the row, but it is comparing at row and column level. Then let's look at does iceDQ platform provide automated data reconciliation during my hold on. Yes, that's the whole purpose of iceDQ. It is an automated platform. Of course, I can't bring up everything over here, but we can definitely show you that. During migration testing, should we use real customer data or test data? Okay, it's very interesting. I kind of covered in the last meeting, but this is very, very important. During migration testing, you must use real data, because sample data, test data, it is good, but there are a lot of corner cases, use cases, test cases that you will only discover when you use the real data. And not only real data, you have to use all the data. The only thing that you can do that you might not want, like your organization will sometimes not allow you to see SSN numbers and all that. So there is a place where you obfuscate the data or encrypt the data and just show replacement values. But you have to absolutely do 100% and use real data. Otherwise, you will miss a lot of things. What if there are difference between data types? Different. Okay. Example is the source of. Okay. So what happens is when you go from a data type to a data type, you have to create rules that you have to find the equivalent data type on the left and the right hand side. If you don't have the equivalent data types, the data will be truncated. Now here in this case, you are saying target supports only 32 bits. So now here this is a failure from the person who created the schema. This is not allowed, because you have to go to the upper schema. For example, you will have to go to a string data type which allows more kilobytes KB than the previous one. But in case you know that your data is only 32 kilobytes and that's why you are allowing 64 kilobyte on the right hand side, then that comparison will be captured when you do the data comparison. So if there is any truncation of data, if you see here, if there is any truncation of data, it will pop up, oh, this is the problem. But technically, if you ask me, this is incorrect, because you cannot go from data type that supports more value to a data type that supports lower value. So that is not acceptable. Anna, any other questions? Is there any questions? If I didn't answer, please go ahead and type it. And I think we can even open the audio. I think there is no issue because there are,
Sure.
we can, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to ask your question using voice, you can. It's a meeting, so you can unmute yourself and ask. Yeah, I have a question. My company is actually going through this as we speak.
Uh-huh.
We have Deloitte
Consulting
as
company.
vendor. Yeah,
Yeah.
so they are doing this,
Yeah.
and they're using the Oracle. It's kind of interesting. So the new product is Oracle Fusion. The old product is NetSuite, which is also Oracle product. It
Yeah.
was acquired. And so in some way they doing transition from Oracle to Oracle,
Uh-huh.
but it's not. There
Yeah.
is so much. Yeah, and it's huge project. It started last month. It's gonna be ending in September because it's not a simple thing.
So Oracle NetSuite to Oracle Fusion, is that what is happening?
Correct. Yeah, and they are doing this data transfer right now. Yeah,
Yeah, but
it's
how are they doing this? There are a lot of red signals here, right? The question is how are they doing the migration, and then how are they doing the migration testing? These are the two questions, right?
so yes. So which is it's exactly where I'm going. We are QA of the company,
Yeah,
and we're not involved in migration testing per se,
yeah.
but we are involved in the transition in data system integration testing.
Okay.
And I wanted to know what would be, and yes, there is like a zillion of rows of data because they transition production data to new system. So my question is, how do I approach the testing itself of this transition data?
This slide, can you see the slide?
Yes.
See, this is the most important slide for you, right? You have first thing you need to step back, right, and say, hey, what time have you allocated? See, number one question: what time have they allocated for data testing, data migration testing, right? And who's responsible for it, right? This is the second part. Have they allocated time? Have they allocated one party who's going to certify, who's going to sign off on the testing? Then the second question is, there is an old system, there is a new system. What tool do you have to compare these two systems? Because you are not going to go and pull the data by hand, right? Take a spoon and pull the data, take a spoon and pull the data, right? Or are you going to do in Excel? How are you going to pull data from Excel, right? It is almost impossible to do that, right? Then the next thing is, if you look at some of the mistakes that I pointed out, right? Is there a data mapping document? You need a data mapping document that maps the source and the target. Do we have that? Based on the data mapping document, then you need to actually create this, and I can have a detailed discussion with you offline. But basically, you need to do the same thing. Make sure the schema is based on the mapping document, the schema matches, then the initial load matches, right? And then every time they do delta, the delta matches, incremental load, right? And then when the system runs in parallel, the data matches. So you need to have these 4 phases of testing within your system.
So much that this is new for me, and I'm learning so much from what you say because I knew there is a depth to it. I just didn't know which one. So
Because the problem is here, right? How do you know whatever the schema is there on the left hand side is exactly or similar to the right hand side? Because it has to hold the data, right?
right.
Then how do you know before even you start using it, the initial load is correct, right? How do you know the system is in sync? And then how do you know when the system are running in parallel? After for some time they will run the system in parallel. How do you know when they are running the system in parallel? It is creating the same result, right? Remember the $4 transaction? It is doing the same result.
Yeah, it's true. There is a lot of unknown. We are being fed the information. We are not in charge of it. The Deloitte is in charge.
Yeah, actually, my friend works for
Yeah.
Deloitte, right?
Yeah.
But the question that you need to bring in is, how do I test this thing? Like, how do I certify this thing? So have they made you responsible for testing? Who's responsible for testing?
No, they bring subject matter experts into testing.
Yeah, but then still, no, no. See, that's a physical person, right?
Yes.
but how are they actually executing the test, right? Because what might take one day might take 15 days if they're doing it manually or something.
That's exactly what they do. Yes.
It's like the old way comparing in Excel, looking, oh, looks good, looks good.
I'm assuming that subject matter expert, they know their production data.
But
And
subject matter expert doesn't mean they are expert in the data reconciliation, data migration testing, and doesn't mean they have the data testing tool. So these are the two parts that we need. We can chat offline on that.
yeah, okay. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, it's so interesting. It
And
just
there is another question from Priya. Do we need to do data reconciliation test within the lift and shift? Lift and shift also. Okay, so if you, I don't know, what company do you work for, Priya? See, any company, if you are even you are doing lift and shift, the compliance requirement is you have to certify. There has to be a certification audit process that needs to show that when you lift and shift it, the data is actually
Sorry.
matching.
So I work with WorldPay. That's a payment company.
Okay. And where are you located?
London.
Okay. So how do I say Amu or Priya? Like,
Amo.
Amo, the fundamental issue is regardless of whatever you do, I forgot the regulation name, and especially in financial, there is a rule that says that you need to prove. They will ask you for audit papers, which says show me that you tested and the data is exactly same. The
Okay.
schema is same and the database is same. Okay.
Honestly, I was not aware, and I don't know whether anyone else is aware of this in my company.
I can give you like offline or something. I can get you. We can have a chat, and I can give you the. I forgot the regulation name. I don't have it in front of me.
Sure, I'll ping you outside the call.
Yeah, you can ping me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
And then-
yeah.
yeah. And then the second question is the test scenarios will change if testing on left shift Microsoft SQL
So,
S3.
so basically, what is happening in our company is we are doing lift and shift,
Uh-huh.
and we are moving from SQL to cloud side,
Yeah.
and the lower environment, the test environments are going to be in the S3 bucket they are going to use.
Uh-huh.
But the pre-prod and prod environments, they are planning to move RDS instances. We have been told that the testing will be similar. There is no basic difference, but I am still not very confident for that. So should I be mindful, or there will be any change?
Listen, see the regulation is very simple. There is a BCBS 239 and I forgot the European one, right? The every time you lift or shift, every time you move data, you have to. They will ask if you are the head of this thing. At some point, the internal auditor or the external auditor will come and say, "I don't care. You moved something from here to here. Show me the proof you tested it."
Okay.
Right. So see, there is technically what it is and compliance wise what it is. Technically, every time you change something, you need to test it, right? If you develop something, or you change, you have to test it. And here the system is changing, the platform is changing. You need to. I want to protect myself. I will put some proof. I will keep some proof of that I tested it.
Okay.
I'll give an example of this. Very interesting example. If I go here, the first slide. Here, if you look at this, the FINRA fined the former chief information officer of TSB Bank. He was fined like 84,000. This money is not important, but some 84,000 pounds for not following the process of testing.
Oh wow. And yeah, when it comes to money and payment, they will be strict.
Yeah, and see they lost. See the company was fined. The customer lost money. The company was fined, but the compliance, the TSB actually not TSB. I forgot the name of the regulatory agency. A PRA. If you Google it, you will find the PRA actually fined the individual who was responsible for the project.
Okay.
And this is all publicly information. This is not, I didn't make this up, any of this. There is a whole Slaughter and May report, IBM and ENY audit. FCA and PRA, these are the two organizations you need to worry about. And there is one more regulation that came into picture in London.
Okay, I will have a look into it. Thank you so much.
Because we come to QA Financial Conference in London every year. So maybe we'll see you there sometime.
Sure. Sure. If whenever you're coming, just ping me. I'll drop a message after this.
Yeah,
And
sure, sure.
thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Not from me. Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody else? I'm looking forward for the short session of your presentations, because I am like deep in it. So it's great to hear from the expert, because I have no idea what's going on. I just know that this project is huge. Everybody's involved and people are lost, and it just like observing it. Uh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another the problem is, right. There are two fundamental problem in the our business, right. One side is the business doesn't give importance to QA, or that's one part. They don't focus on data. They focus on general testing and not focus on the data testing aspect of the thing, right. But the second problem is we are like QA person, like we are not classically trained in data testing. We
Yes.
are classically trained in application testing, system testing,
Yes.
right? So there is a whole need to educate people, and it's nothing. It is new, right? And we have been trying to do this. Like we were the first one to launch the system and the solution and all that. So that's the unfortunate part. I think Suchita saying is so true, right?
Yes.
So I don't know why. Like they lost $1 billion for not doing like a 50,000 or $100,000 expense, right? So it's crazy. Like it's unbelievable. You look for TSB case study on iceDQ website, you'll find it, and we can send it to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely look forward for the third session. So much to learn. Any other questions from people who hear? Like everybody who attends, they understand the pain of it. Oh, all right. If there is no other question, we can stop today. I wanted to just mention there is a flash sale going on for Innovate QA Seattle, which is June 6th. And the flash sale like severely drops the price of the ticket, so it's gonna be very affordable. Flash sale is the promo code. You get significant savings for your tickets. It's only for 3 days. It started yesterday, so just jump on an opportunity to attend. We have people from Microsoft. Jason Higgins will be there. A lot of experts, and hopefully Sandesh too.
Yeah.
Yeah. June 5th flash sale is the promo code. Thank you all very much, and we're looking forward for the third session on this important topic, which is data migration and data quality.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody
Thank you.
for your time. I look forward to having a chat, one-on-one chat with you all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.